günler demiyor. Harika günler diyor.
Team, and we're gonna have a repeat circumstance here. Takada, Veno, Flixie, Vico, they are here again at Lone Wolf. They are not letting up, and Malabuka, Wox, and Ping, they're gonna have to formulate some kind of a response because they can't afford to watch these guys play out a fresh match without them.
Looking at drops, Flixie lands first. Vico, Veno, they've claimed the high ground position here at Lone Wolf. They have that positional advantage. Enough shields. There's so many factors to these early game engagements, but ultimately, if you put in the work, if you put in the prep, if you hit your shots, it looks like both trios right now are going to be quite even on shield. It's all up to who can make the better play.
Oh no. Oh no, that was almost disastrous for Vico, but Malabuka just gonna get the shots off in time. So Vico's going to survive. Malabuka now dropping. Wanted to challenge some of these lower floors. Wox, but it's Ping knocked yet again. Malabuka's team taking the first casualty here. And Wox, Malabuka, they've got to go on a recovery tour now. Vico, total control of the high ground. Even if Malabuka and Wox try to escape the mansion, they're going to have to deal with Vico. But Flixie, him having been eliminated now means that this is a clean 2 versus 2. Wox trying to deal with Vico and Veno at the same time. Probably way too much pressure. So he'll try to create a little bit of space. Vico and Veno still hunting though. But Wox, he just wants to play the quiet game.
I wonder if any of the trios kind of, north of Lone Wolf or in the surrounding areas are going to think, is this a good time to, like maybe third party these trios? Is it a option? How long are these fights going to take? It's all about looking at the elimination feed, seeing how it plays out. But if you look right now, you know that both teams have lost the player. And right now, it looks like Vico, Veno actually don't have the superior position. They're going to farm match. They're doing what they can, but might even potentially try and bring back Flixie. Even if they do so, will they get beamed out the sky? It's kind of forcing them to drop down and be on even ground here, as they were trying to do whatever possible to stop this, but I think they're gonna get it.
Veno's holding. They don't have the materials to jump in and challenge it. Covered. That's why Vico was tarping out in the first place. He tunneled out a safety net before Flixie landed. Obviously, they want to go for the double revive, but Malabuka Wox. They can't afford to waste any more time. They're trying to close in. It's still a 2 versus 2 scenario. Veno nearly getting the better end of Malabuka there, but Vico down to his final build. Vico's just going for the immediate battle, and he wins it out. Wox cannot stop him. Malabuka also about to join his teammate. Another clear wipe. Veno and Flixie are just waiting. Flixie watching his teammates essentially clutch this one up. Malabuka finally
No way.
shutting down Vico. I would not believe it had we not just seen it, Takada, but Vico doesn't actually win. I thought this was all said and done. Veno now has to ensure that he takes out Malabuka. They need to play for the reboots. And Malabuka, he doesn't have an opportunity just yet to use these shield potions.
Oh,
but
no
he's trying
ammo.
to dodge around, even taking the launch pad. He's got to report help indirectly, and Veno could fall here, but he's still chasing Malabuka. These guys refusing to budge, but they spent entirely too long. It is catastrophe now for both of our leading teams.
No. Not even a single trio comes out winning in this situation. The fight took too long. The players in the surrounding area, like I was mentioning, they saw on the Elim feed that these teams were going back and forth. It wasn't a quick fight. It's the perfect third-party opportunity. It wasn't just one trio. It was 2 different trios that realized this. What a tragic fall for both Veno and Malabuka's trio. Scroll, eye drop in sky now. Gonna try and fight the other third-party trio, Rippe. Trying to do what he can to stay up, but Scroll going right into the box. He's got that gold rush effect, phasing his way in, but no knocks connecting yet. As the longer these trios take, the more risky the situation is gonna get.
This might have just bailed out Malabuka entirely, though. Didn't actually see him getting cleaned up in the same fashion as Veno there towards the end, so he might have even scurried off elsewhere, might be able to play for a reboot later on. Definitely worst case scenario for Veno, but high risk, high reward is definitely seeming to be the name of the game as far as those two teams are concerned. iDrop, Skrull, and Sky, though, they need to just establish Surge the same way that they've been doing. They love fighting all throughout. Seems to maintain their intention here.
There's a few things to think about. One, Malabuka's still up, so there's potential for a reboot later on. The other is that first and second place, so Malabuka and Veno, are, you know, only a difference of 17 points, but second and third is a difference of 64 points. So if Malabuka goes down here, that's a huge opportunity from second or third, sorry, to seventh, eighth, even just the top 10 in general to close that gap between first and second. And these are two trios that can make it happen.
Close call there for Glubshy. Nearly found himself getting a tag that was going to be a big problem. Fortunately, it didn't go through. I like this, though, from Sky. Just maintaining the high ground position. Also, making sure to look out, see whether or not teams are trying to join the mix-up that's taking place here at Lone Wolf. But Sky, Skrull, iDrop, they might have gotten the damage that they were after. Whether or not they continue to re-engage is a separate conversation, but Malabuka is still lingering the bottom end of Lone Wolf Lair, and it's probably going to be very difficult for him to actually work his way out of this POI, since he knows that there is a team controlling the high ground. You just get so much view where Sky and Skrull were last seen. Malabuka doesn't have any other options but to just hide. Hope that these teams are able to clear out, and then they can try to make a play.
Yeah, it's a matter of time here. You know, do they wait for the Lone Wolf to go in zone, go there, even go into zone to find something? While that plays out, though, we'll look over at Prodoxy, Chino, and Pablo. Double chugs, hopeful height battle. Dexy, Artist, and Huddy. This is the trio that I believe originally was going to contest Tayson today. But it looks like the upper getting spread, and it's not quite going their way as Artist gets knocked. Now with 3v2.
Some of these teams just getting so disoriented in mix-ups. Pablo finds a clean shot onto Dexy. Just another elimination. So many elims, even for Prodoxy's team, already at 6. They are clearly trying to avoid having to deal with any sort of surge woes later on. Surely this is enough damage to carry them through their mid-game rotates.
Surely, right?
Surely.
Seeing what Malabuka decided to do, it seems like, yeah, Lone Wolf still has 2 trios there, so he's like, you know what? I'm out of here. I'll find another reboot.
Oh, no.
But, I mean, there are some trios close by. I'm wondering if he even has all the cards, if he's going to go for the gold route. A lot of options, but the issue is, you know, in this meta, the odds of having trios inside of the Storm is significantly higher. I mean, even comparing it to last season, there was a 68% increase with the amount of time spent in the Storm. So you really do have to be careful when you're rotating through here. You're never safe, but we'll see if Malabuka can make something happen.
Definitely not going to be an easy endeavor. A couple other teams, though. Kudo just stuck. Nowhere left to run. Misha's team finding that elimination leads me to believe that something has gone horribly wrong for Pete and Nebs, considering that they weren't with him. Sure enough, leaderboard top right going to reveal it. Pink, Nebs, Hero are currently 5th place team, having been freshly eliminated. Now means that other teams can try to leapfrog their way into that position instead. Queasy, Swizzy, and Murstache, though, they're just focused on their own methods of success.
Good news is they still have Seaport on con. You know, they don't have a Vico Venoflixi camp in their vault this time around, so a little less pressure in that sense. Can play more what they have been used to playing throughout the season. And hey, looks like Malibuca got, you know, step 1 of 5 complete, right? He brought his teammates back into the match, but now not only do they have to recuperate their shield, their mats, their loot, they're probably gonna have to get a bit of damage. Malibuca already had those eliminations, but even so, having to rotate from Outlaw, you know, the job's not finished.
They're definitely going to have to spend some time looking to build back up from their starting point. And yeah, it's always going to be difficult, but when you play for the reboot, you're also letting everybody else in the area know, including teams that may be struggling for Surge along the way. And Malibuca just trying to get out as quickly as possible. Walks looking for whatever whites he can find. They are just so split currently.
What I don't like here is if the opposing trio chooses to take that geyser and find, you know, one of the players caught off guard, if they see walks in the shoreline, all 3 of them land on him. You know, there's quite a risk there, but saw a little bit of what happened at Demon's Dojo. Vanya Maris and Pixie, this could be a big game for them. They're the closest to second place, sitting in 3rd. So Vico's already gone. If Malibuca doesn't make out a zone here, this is the trio that has a big opportunity to make it in. Actually, with the current points, including, you know, this match, 4th place alongside Pablo, Ferdox, and Shino there. So they're both really close.
They're not looking to have a repeat of what went down, though. Either one's in control of the leaderboard, Takada. It's definitely about the Global's position, but winning and becoming the Blade of Champions holder yourself is an entirely separate feeling, and that's one that this team is certainly chasing after with all their might.
Looks like a Kira for X and Karama. We're going to be at the opposing end here. Just kind of taking shots back and forth. I don't think we'll see a fight come out from this. Okay, I only see Malibuca, which is slightly concerning, but his teammates are up. It's just Twi's trio's making it quite difficult for them to get back in. But, you know, on the other hand, it's given them a bit of damage, which they do need. So to be fair, it's not the worst thing that could happen. This is just not looking good, though. To be honest, like...
You're at Canyon's Crossing, and the zone is pulling towards the northern side, where the elevation is at. Even if they make it in, they still have to deal with all the struggles that are involved with scaling up elevation, dealing with their material counts. Veno's strategy has just set them so far back that even the initial survival, if you want to consider that a win, isn't actually proving to be all that much in their favor, because they are just about to hit the range of placement points. And there's not that many, and they're going to need way more. You want to look at consistent top 5 placements.
Yeah, I mean, I'll basically call that a draw, right? We had 1-0 for Vico Venoflixi, and now a 1 for the draw. They both kind of didn't win in this situation. Now, hey, if Malibuca's able to come back, get a decently, you know, solid game, even just make it the end game, that actually won't be too bad at all. At least they can continue to kind of increase that gap, but we'll see. For the trios inside a zone, Kami said Haru didn't have that challenge in the early game. They're positioned up quite well to kind of pick off these teams rotating on in. We'll see where this next zone does end up pulling, but so far pretty chill.
They can take a few extra ticks of storm if needed. We're also hanging around that edge line of Seaport. Maybe rotating over the water with City and Cammy's position. We got that leverage of holding down the bridge. Thomas on the island with that mythic drum gun. That's
harder than it looks.
Beating a tag.
Those tags, when they're running around
Thomas.
building that far away in a major finals lobby with the amount of players that are up, you know, those aren't easy shots, but I mean, it's Thomas HD, Malibuca walks though. This is what they need. They need to find a surprise. They need to find a refresh. Malibuca hits the initial shot. Ducks get a knock. He doesn't even go down. This could be it, Taco.
This could be huge for Malibuca, but first, they've got to close it out for next team, though. Completely sabotage where we're currently looking, and Dinas will be fully wiped. Just camping the launch pad. A bit diabolical by Malibuca, but desperate times call for desperate measures, and you have to respect the strategy here. They had to do something to come up with a little bit of a win after what took place in the early.
You said diabolical. That's the perfect play. I mean, if you're thinking of odds of where trios are going to end up, a launch pad in a location like this for common rotations is the perfect spot. And not only did not a single player get knocked, they were able to get multiple finishes. I mean, this is exactly what we wanted to see from Malibuca's trio. They are somehow managing to slowly but surely turn this game around. I drop Sky and Scroll, on the other hand, still below.
Just trying to make sure that Fnaim, Moneymaker, Faded don't actually try to focus in on where they're currently seated. A little bit lower down. They're gonna work their way into this next edge of zone, though. Costing them a lot of mats, though. They're probably hoping for better tags, but Hydra from out of nowhere, completely out of left field even, just gets knocked. Zara, Zangi, and Peterbor have closed into their current position. Double revive will be enough to get iDrop back into the action, but they're still 5 below. Time is ticking, and the clock is working against them. Scroll trying to make up for the lost minutes. They want a little bit more damage, but they've got to spend time instead healing. And Sky gonna pay the ultimate price here. He wanted to see if he could get that little bit of extra surge for his teammates, but instead, a 1 versus 3, just too aggressive. And he'll be punished for it. Zara and Zangi, likely another team that was also incredibly low on their surge, but now, Scroll, iDrop, they don't get a chance to think about it. They're gonna try to get some shots off, but with the armored van, it's gonna be very difficult, and Scroll still has to deal with all the teams ahead of him at Kappa Kappa.
And they have to, yeah, make that rotation, right? Hey, at least we didn't get a full north zone. I mean, we're east here, but it's about mid-map, so not too bad, not too bad. Malibuca walks ping in the zone finally. 5 elims on the board now, and despite getting those eliminations, still only 55 above. But this is honestly more than they could even ask for with the amount of materials and loot that they have. Now it's just about keeping it up. They might not get the best zone position. They might not have a bunch of extra loot, but at least they are in the game.
Might have to use that Memmis grenade sooner rather than later, though. But Walks trying to hold on to it, trying to see if he can punish Peterbor's team. We saw them spend a couple of moments tangling with eye drops because they needed that surge damage. But Walks now gonna nestle Malibuca's team at just 124 above. They still need to find some form of an elimination refresh. They want the elims, and they are punishing these teams that were just slower to the rotate than themselves. Great elimination, though. That's definitely going to build up a little bit of a buffer zone here. Juicy, Andy, and Fincheck, though, look like they want to try and get involved. And consider that they're further ahead than Malibuca's team, they might be able to actually punish them once Malibuca's team leaves this boxed up position.
Yeah, they have a lot of built in front of them, so, you know, normally if you want to try and go on congested side, sometimes it's not possible. They're going to have to follow through the builds that are already placed and do what they can to make it in, despite there being a lot of trios there already. But for Merstash, Queasy, and Swizzy, they are quite low, kind of under the bridge almost, but at least they're safe here.
Depending on how this next zone pulls, it might actually work to their advantage, because then they could just look to layer swap and play on top of the bridge compared to where other teams might get stuck on the other side of the waterway. Still, so many teams starting to really pile up here. Opal, Panzer, and Thomas making the most of this hill face, though. They want to get a move on. A little bit short on that rotate, but it gets the job done. Thomas and Panzer, Opal. material, but they definitely need some more.
Malibuca has been knocked though. Walks has been fully eliminated. Both players down. As Ping is left as a solo now with all the pressure on him. 91 above. I mean, they were able to get a bit of eliminations, a slight amount of placement. But I mean, they've still got good materials. Well, Ping still got good materials. The only issue is with multiple trios focusing you, you gotta either get close to another trio and, you know, make them get shots taken on them as well, or just hope you get people to stop shooting at you. But
he's so obviously a solo. They are going to keep shooting at this man. They do not want to let an individual survive these circumstances. Does spot a little bit of loot though. That might be slight saving grace. Swizzy, Queasy, and Merstash though have seemingly postured up above the bridge now. They took their opportunity to get that overhead space, and this is very familiar territory for them, considering that they land at Seaport City, Shining Span right next door, committing a lot of materials here, making sure that they can just have a huge metal lining to peek out from.
This is going to be an impressive rotate if he pulls this one off. I mean, he's got to swim. There's a lot of trios in front of him. If he can catch a player off guard, could be a massive refresh, but he's not able to connect the crucial shots. And Thomas HD with the drum gun is going to be able to take him out.
But Thomas was so split from where Panzer and Uppel are at that Uppel doesn't have the same luck as Thomas. He has soon to be eliminated if a team can't get the job done, but Thomas, he's not going to be able to jump forward any further. This water zone is just so vicious. So many teams having to commit so much material. They just don't have the time to think about where they're headed next. They're just trying to get into the safety of the zone itself. Panzer might be able to build up a couple of placements here.
For the players on the edge here, it's the perfect opportunity to just kind of rain down from above on all the solos, trios that are trying to make their way in. And it's going to be Cammy, Seti, and Hari who successfully have taken that high ground. This is prime positioning for them. It wouldn't even matter to them if it pulled back. It would be honestly perfect with the builds already placed and how difficult it would make it for the trios down below. There's only 9 trios left in this match. Devastating zone.
Queasy's team, though, is still kind of hovering that secondary height position. for Doxy, Pablo, Chino, they'll tank a little bit of storm damage if it means getting into more optimal position. Pixie and Vanya, though, make that just Pixie, because Vanya has been knocked. Pixie now watching in horror. Can't do anything for his teammates. He might not even be able to save himself once he's quick. 3 action times, but Jewel and Pixie will be forced to just play inside the storm, hope that this Chug Jug can get him a couple of additional placement spots. But it is a steep rotation, and as a solo, somebody is bound to notice him. He could look for a big pump shot, but it would take a lot of guts for him to pull it off, and Height has already noticed. But he sees the knock body. He wants to go for the 1v1, but he won't get that opportunity. Comeback falling directly next to him. Everybody getting cleared up.
Said we messed up. The zone didn't go north this game, so we gotta make every single moving zone just keep going more north. For Doxy, Chino, Pablo, they're able to knock down one. Big refresh to allow them to continue on forwards. Cammy, Seti, Hari starting to drop down a little bit here. They could be running low on materials, potentially looking for a refresh, but every trio, every player down below on minimal materials, so little to work with. It's gonna be all-out chaos.
Merstash completely ran out of mats. Hari, Cammy, Seti, they might have height control, but the zone, it's pulling back up the hill face slightly, and Queasy's team, they committed to the low. Queasy's team now stuck, and they're gonna be collected victims of where this RNG is working against them. But for Doxy, Chino, Pablo, they might have something to say. They might be able to steal this one away from Seti, Cammy, and Hari. And for Doxy, just narrowly peeking out. Pablo doesn't have any builds left, though. They're gonna have to fight their way through this one. Darm, Pix, completely cut off from each other, and that's gonna be another elimination. for Pablo, Chino, and Fradoxy. They are making it work. Despite not having any mats to build with Takata, they are still clearing out this low front side. And Pablo, Fradoxy, Chino, they know we've just got to stay as close to each other as possible. There aren't that many players remaining. They can deal with Pix and Demas. It could be the difference maker here. Pix will be collected, but Chino, having been eliminated, now makes it all the easier for Seti, Yami. They can maybe make something big happen here, but Pablo, he is scrambling. Just so much pressure coming in from above. Cammy, Hari, Seti, they know that there is only 2 players standing in the way of them in this next Victory Royale, and they are hunting Fradoxy and Pablo down. The advantages are just so steeply in their favor. They've got the high ground. Fradoxy and Pablo surely completely out of materials, just clinging on to whatever HP they have left. But Seti, he'll be the first to fall. He's gonna play Disruptor. Cammy, Hari, now going for the backup, but Fradoxy, he might have done enough, but no! Cammy falls, and Hari's not gonna be able to do it! Pablo is gonna be the one to seal the deal here! Fradoxy's team had zero business winning this one out, and yet Pablo making sure the job gets done.
How do they let that happen? How do they let that happen, Taco? The 2v3, not only that, he said they gotta be running low on materials. Cammy said, Hari, we're also running low, forced to drop down, and somehow, Fradoxy, Pablo, they got the job done. They take home the win. What a way to close out this match. Going into the game in 4th place, 1st and 2nd, getting knocked out. This is exactly what they needed to push themselves into that possibility of taking home this tournament.
It's just Fradoxy at the end there. He just had the singular tag he needed, the damage that he had to apply in that closing moment to make it so that Pablo could fully find that last elimination. But it's always tough when you get tangled up in those kinds of positions for both teams. Kudos, though, to Fradoxy's for holding on.
They did not miss a shot. Fred dropped down low, took out Seti. Pablo gets the back-to-back from Cammy onto Hari. What a way to finish it off. I mean, I'm lost for words, but I know 3 people that have got plenty, so let's head on over to the desk.
No, you don't understand. I don't have plenty after watching that. I don't know how you boys are faring, but oh my gosh, my jaw was on the floor as it has been multiple times this weekend. I didn't think it could get any lower, but I think I've got a bruise, Levin 2K, because that end game was wild.
I still don't know how that happened. I can't be so... There's no reason why Cammy, Seti, and Hari should be losing that 3v2. I mean, come on, look, Fradoxy, Pablo, this game was so crucial for them, right? Because the 2 top dogs left room open for that 3rd place team in Chino, Pablo, and Fradoxy to come through. And what a better game to do it, right? They had to win this game to put themselves into contention. And I think this would actually put them into 1st place on that leaderboard. But how do they win that 3v2, Mini? It's ridiculous.
Absolutely insane. I think it was Seti that dropped down a little bit for Surely there. Just didn't really work out for those guys. Got chopped down. Was it chopped? Yeah, that's what happened. But for these guys, I mean, Pablo Wingu there at the end has to be said. He was hitting some huge shots onto the trio on high. And just the way that these guys play these end games, we spoke about it. Is this now the time where we should start considering this team as a potential FNCS champion here in Chapter 16 2? Absolutely unreal here. But they deserve it if they are going to do it because they've been so consistent all weekend.
I mean, I just would have never thought we'd be going into game 9 of the FNCS finals here in EU with Pablo, Chino, and Fradoxy as the team in 1st place. Still, plenty of Fortnite to be played, but this team might just win Denmark's 1st FNCS. I don't want to think too prematurely, but that's on the cards now. They're in contention after this game.
I feel like Benno and Flixie down to Moss Meadows.
Just go back, boys, please. Honestly.
Yeah. Let's just keep the drama going. I've got my cup of tea. I'm ready for it, boys. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss game 2. I didn't realize I booked multiple tickets to the cinema today because we are seeing picture after picture Mini Miner, and I've run out of popcorn. I mean, where do we even start with what happened in that last game? Because you can see in the standings, it's making so much of a difference. All of these trios trying to surprise each other now. And we're definitely surprised by the fact that Pablo, Fridoxy and Chino are #1. They came from the last chance qualifiers, got Mars Meadow surprisingly uncontested, and now they're just doing everything they can with it to make a claim for global championships and the Blade of Champions.
This is interesting. You know, 6 points ahead of Malibuca's team now. If Malibuca's team do go down to Vico Flixi, if they do end up landing there, what will Vico, Venom, Flixi do? It looks like Chino, Pablo, Wingo, and Fridoxy just being so consistent right now. So maybe we end up seeing the off-spawn fight that we were expecting at the beginning of the weekend. But for a lot of our teams there, lots of moving up in the standings.
I honestly, this is getting too crazy. This is a 4-horse race right now because Vanya's trio, you have to remember, they're, you know, in the 400-point range. They are behind, but they have an opportunity there because the two teams ahead of them at any given point, like we saw last game, can just go down and get very minimal points, right? And so then it becomes a race between them and Pablo's trio, right? Look at that. If we have another game like that where Malibuca and Vico go down, it's going to get tough. I mean, that game for Malibuca is a bit bittersweet, right? Because they're able to get out of the off-spawn situation after all the third parties came in. Narrowly, though. Very narrowly. I think Veno's trio very much should have won that. They had so many opportunities to just clean them up. But Malibuca kept on fighting, and he reboots his team. He gets them back in the game. But from there, I mean, it's just too scuffed. They can't get a foothold on the game, and so they get very minimal points out of it.
Yeah, it's not ideal, but, you know, they did better than Vico, Venom, Flixi, and for them, when they're getting landed on by them, that's all they need to do. They just need to keep bettering them, and that's what they're doing right now. So, yeah, for those guys, not an ideal game, but they need to start being a little bit more convincing off spawn. I think winning these fights a little bit quicker to not allow those third parties to come on through and clean up.
Feels like we were talking a lot about Malibuca's team's consistency yesterday, the fact that the lowest they placed was an 8, but now my eye is on Marius, Pixie and Vanya Levin, because they seem to have these clutch plays where they manage to just get themselves the highest placement point possible even when things are going wrong.
Absolutely, and that's what you need. That's what you need in an FNCS winning run, right? Vanya knows that very well. When he won his last year with Swizzy, he had 2 amazing clutches that were able to sort of help secure them the win. And that's what you're going to need today if you're going to be able to catch up with some of the people ahead of them. And they have that ability, right? I think that's never been a question when you have Marius, Vanya, and Pixie on the same team. But that consistency to keep playing in these end games when some of their top competitors might not be, right? And that's really the problem here. I would like to see more of these end games where it is all 3 of them as a trio, right? We talk about that. They're making it there, but it's a bit too scuffed at times. Maybe 1 or 2 of them still are.
Yeah, and I think they might be in the perfect position almost to sort of take home this FNCS because they're almost the team that nobody's really concerned about, right? They're the quiet team just outside of that big top 3. So if Vico, Venom, Flixi keep contesting Malibuca, then maybe they go and contest Fridoxy's team. If these guys can keep being consistent, keep picking up those placements, they could find themselves with it all to play for in game number 12.
Do you see this as a team that might take risks the same way that the likes of Vico, Veno and Flixi would Mini Miner? Do you think they're going to change anything significantly just to try and eke themselves up into it?
I think they're going to stick to what they know because it's been working out. And as I mentioned, they're landing, you know, sort of towards the north side of where Vico, Venom, Flixi now are landing there at Lone Wolf Lair. So they're going to be enjoying that third-party potential and hopefully for them getting more surge. So I don't think they're going to really switch too much up because you have to remember they're in the global spots as well. So it's not like, you know, they're all out going for an FNCS win. They also want to qualify for global, so the risk might not be worth it.
Vanya's tasted victory before. I wonder how hungry he is for it right now. We're going to head to game number 9, though, because the battle bus is ready with Taco and Takata.
But imagine incredibly hungry. I mean, everybody wants to be the Blade of Champions wielder, and that is exactly what's at stake here for so many of our teams, especially within that top 4, Takata. Things are getting incredible.